We take our coverage to Idaho, where many are still mourning and trying to understand why firefighters were ambushed and killed. Sunday around 2 p.m., firefighters responded to a brush fire on Canfield Mountain. The fire was intentionally ignited as a trap. Crews arrived. They were ambushed with shotgun fire. Two veteran firefighters, Battalion Chiefs Frank Harwood, age 42, and John Morrison, age 52, were killed, and a third, Dave Trisdale, age 47, was critically injured as well. Law enforcement launched a 5-hour manhunt involving over 300 officers, helicopters, and FBI support. They located the suspect via mobile phone ping. A SWAT team found him deceased from a self-inflicted gunshot. No clear motive has been established. Investigators are analyzing devices, vehicle, and writings to see why this happened. His grandfather hinted at a psychological breakdown possibly tied to disappointment over his firefighting ambitions, though police found no application records. Local fire departments now mandate law enforcement escorts on wildfire calls for responder safety. Our thoughts and prayers remain with the victims of this atrocity and their families. Joining us now, the Attorney General of the state of Idaho, Raul Labrador. I was such a fan of your work in Congress, enjoyed serving with you on the Judiciary Committee. I wish we weren't having to talk under these circumstances and conditions, Mr. Attorney General. We wanted to check in. How are the people of Idaho doing today? How are first responders reacting to this tragedy in your state?
You know, the community in North Idaho has gotten together and has really shown the support for law enforcement. They supported them before, and I think they have shown just their huge love they have for these community. It was such a tragedy, and it was so unexpected. As you know, law enforcement, especially firemen, when they're showing up for a fire, this is the last thing that they're thinking about that they're going to have to handle. And it was just the most outrageous and horrendous thing that I think they could encounter. And I think the way the community has rallied around them has been amazing. We're all saddened for the loss of these two brave firemen, and we still have one who is injured, who is I think going to be okay, but has some pretty big injuries. So we just pray for them and just hope for his recovery.
We heard from a family member of the shooter in this matter that it may have been some ambition to be a firefighter that didn't work, that resulted in this. I mean, it's just so senseless. It's hard to imagine anyone having a motive that's even understandable to lay a trap like this for people who want to come help. Are you tracking anything regarding why this happened and maybe what we can do to prevent its frequency in the future?
Yeah, so it's hard to know exactly what happened. I've spoken to the sheriff several times since this happened. I just want to commend the Kootenai County Sheriff and his law enforcement division, all the men and women that were out there protecting the community and who responded so bravely in this case. But I've talked to him several times, and it's really hard to know why this happened. You know, it's too early in the process. They're going to be looking at his data, the information on his computer. They have warrants and subpoenas out for this kind of information. They don't know exactly. We've heard that rumor, but there's a lot of rumors online, and none of them have been confirmed. There's all sorts of salacious rumors. So I don't want to speculate on why he did it, but hopefully we can learn after they do the full investigation. We can learn why this happened and how we can prevent it in the future.
We've seen in Los Angeles firefighters who were going out to tend to Waymos that had been lit ablaze in some of the anti-ICE riots. We saw them get assaulted and fear assault. We don't expect that type of thing that we see in Los Angeles to emerge in Idaho, of all places. But do you think firefighters might need to think about having more force protection and going out more frequently alongside law enforcement? Is that something that, just as a society, we unfortunately have to consider now?
Well, as a society, we have to consider a lot of things that we weren't considering before. I think the mental health crisis that is happening in the United States, the way society is responding to this, the way that some people in the society try to excuse bad behavior and there's no punishment or no accountability. I think we have to be really careful, but I'm hopeful that we don't get to a point where firefighters need to worry about having protection, having gear, having a SWAT team protecting them. I hope that this is just a one-off in a situation like this, and that this doesn't happen again. I'm hoping that, but what I know will happen is that the Kootenai County Sheriff, local law enforcement, with the help of the FBI and others, are going to reassess what happened here and see if they need to take measures that are different than what they have been doing in the past.
General Labrador, you've been leading on the litigation front, and the Labrador v. Poe case was cited 6 times in this Supreme Court decision on nationwide injunctions that's going to pave the way for the Trump agenda to really be administered. What do you see as the next steps in that, and what role do you think state attorneys general will have in continuing to push for this type of opportunity for the elected leaders of our country to make the decisions?
Well, Matt, as you know, about 3 years ago, I decided to run for Attorney General. I had served with you in Congress I was there for 8 years, and I had never really thought about the roles of the Attorney General, but I started seeing what happened during the first Trump administration, where judges were trying to curtail everything that he was doing, where attorneys generals were not being aggressive enough. The attorney general that we had in the state of Idaho was not being aggressive enough in defending the Trump agenda. And we had Democratic attorneys general that were attacking everything he was doing. And I thought we needed a more aggressive attorney general in the state of Idaho, and I decided to run for attorney general. And my first 2 years as attorney general, I took on the Biden administration numerous times, making sure that we stopped the things that they were doing, and we were successful again and again. And one of the big victories that we had was the Poe v. Labrador, where the several liberal activists tried to sue the state of Idaho because we didn't want to have gender-affirming care for children in Idaho, and they sued us, and our federal judge ruled against Idaho. The Ninth Circuit ruled against Idaho, but they ruled in such an overbroad way that we went to the U.S. Supreme Court and we asked them to stop these injunctions, statewide injunctions, not just the plaintiffs in the suit, which only had 2 or 3 plaintiffs, but they enjoined the law in the state of Idaho against anybody. And the Supreme Court ruled in our favor, and we were so proud to see in the CASA decision, the Trump v. CASA decision, where our case was cited 6 different times in approval of curtailing the power, the overreach of the judiciary. So it's so important what state attorneys general are doing. And as Republican attorneys general, we're taking on the overreach of the federal government and the overreach of the judiciary.
Final question. All eyes were on Idaho because of another terrible tragedy. The college student murders. Brian Kohberger pled guilty in court today. My assumption is you probably can't talk about that, but we certainly wanted to note it and give you the chance to make any comment you'd like.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Matt, but we cannot talk about that. We're under a gag order from the court, and there's nothing I can answer. All I can say is that my heart goes out to the family, my heart goes out to the victims and to the community. There's been a lot of suffering, and I think after the sentencing, we're going to be able to see a little bit more about, have more information about the case. But at this time, there's not much that I can say.
The Attorney General of Idaho, Raul Labrador, one of the very best fighting for our country. Thanks for coming on the program, and I hope the next time we speak, it will be without this tragedy hanging over us.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you for reaching out. I don't want to reveal any secrets, but you reached out to me right after this happened. You're a good friend, and I appreciate you as a human being and the work that you're doing.
Take care. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you.